Welcome back to the Digital Imaging channel. I'm Will, and today I'm going to give you the 5 questions you should ask when you are vetting a scanning company for document scanning services. Question number 1 is, what will my project cost? What you want to do is get a baseline of what your project may end up being. It's just an estimate, a high level. You're not getting to huge details here yet, but you want to get that baseline so you don't go down a rabbit hole with something that's completely outside of what you thought it would be. An example would be if you have a couple hundred boxes of paper and you think the project is going to be $15,000, $20,000, but then the company says, no, it's actually going to be $60,000, $70,000. That's way outside your budget. You don't even want to go down that rabbit hole and spend time and your resources and the company's resources talking about something that probably will not happen. So you want to get that high level baseline early on so you know, okay, this is something that either can happen or can't happen, and then decide if you can continue going on with this company and talking about your project in more detail, or if you need to kind of bail out at that point. You can also ask how pricing is determined. Again, this is high level. If you have paper scanning, for example, just ask, how do you typically price projects? Same with microfilm, microfiche, whatever it is, just get an idea so you're aware of where you're starting from on that initial baseline. Question number 2 you should be asking is, what's your scanning process? And this is important because every company has a process of how they do things. It may be sort of an ad hoc process, sort of native knowledge, or it can be something that's actually written down, followed procedurally. But you want to have that warm and fuzzy that this company knows what they're talking about, because you may be handing off your records to someone else and you want to know, can they handle this properly? Do I feel comfortable giving them my records to do this scanning project? And then if there's a particular part of the process that you're extra concerned about, make sure you ask those questions. Remember, this is early on. You're vetting the company and asking these questions to make sure that you feel comfortable that they can handle your project. So if you have a specific question, let's say it's paper scanning, and you're very curious about the preparation of how your materials are handled prior to going into scanning, ask that question. Maybe you're very curious about the quality checks or the indexing. Ask those questions early so they know that there's a particular focus you are concerned about, so you can alleviate those concerns before going further. Something to keep in mind, if you do ask a question and whoever you're chatting with, if there's any sort of hesitancy around answering the question, that can be a red flag. Not because they don't have an answer, but maybe it's not an answer they really want to talk about. Maybe they don't have a good process. Whatever it is, if there's hesitancy to talk about how someone does their scanning within their company, just, little hackles may raise on your neck. Just keep an eye out for that. Question number 3 is, how do you protect my documents? And this can be both digitally and physically, because if you're doing a scanning project, you're scanning hard copy records. So there's that physical aspect. And then once the records are scanned and they're in a digital format, they need to be protected that way as well. So just plainly ask, what are your physical security methods to protect my records? And then also ask, what are your digital security methods to protect my records? Those are critical because they're your records, especially if they're sensitive, confidential, they have personally identifiable information. Those are particularly important, but really any record is important because these are your documents. It may be the only copy. So even if it's public information, but you're getting it scanned, you want to make sure they're protected and secure in the proper way. Going back to that specific type of record where there is confidential or sensitive information like PII, you should ask additional questions like, are these records intermingled with other projects? Where are they stored? How are they stored? Is there any special protection for them because of the sensitivity of these documents? Again, there may not be a single right answer, but you just want to know, how is it done? How are they protected? So if you do go forward with this company, you know what you're getting into and what your records are getting into. Question number 4 is, what proof do you have that you know what you're doing? That's a very blunt way of putting it. Of course, you can ask that a little more diplomatically, but basically what you want to get down to is, how do I know you're telling me the truth? How can I trust you with my records? And then said another way, you're not just taking their word for it. You're saying, just give me some proof. Trust but verify. And a couple ways you can do that. You can ask for internal audits. Yes, a self-audit is different than a third-party audit, but still having at least a self-audit is a good step. You can say, what kind of things are you auditing internally, so you can prove that you are doing this process, that you are protecting my records, that you do have proper security in place, that you do know how to scan these in the right way. You can ask for internal audits as a first step. Then, of course, you can ask for any sort of third-party audits. Those are even better because it means someone technically unbiased is coming from the outside and then checking that company is doing what they say they're doing. So having something like that SOC 2 Type 2 audit would be a big step up from just someone saying, well, here's what I do, and I checked myself. It's like checking your own homework. It's good as long as they're honest, but having someone else check from the outside, make sure they stay honest. And then of course you can ask for things like certifications or just compliance in certain areas like CJIS compliance, following the Criminal Justice Information Services, the FBI security policy for handling criminal information. There's HIPAA compliance. There's following FERPA for student records. So you can just ask, what are you compliant with, or what certifications do you have? Again, it can depend on your specific records, but go ahead and ask those questions, see what they can come up with. And then question number 5 is, can you scan on site? For some folks, this is essential. Occasionally, people want to have their records scanned at their facility. So if that is critical to your project, you need to ask, again, before going too far down the rabbit hole, can you do this? Not everyone can do on site. Not everyone may want to do on site. It really depends on the job, because sometimes the project doesn't make sense to go on site. Typically, it'll be a significantly higher cost for you, the client, for someone to come to your facility, bring their scanners, bring their people, have to basically create an entire setup at your location, compared to either a company picking up your records or you sending it to them to a facility that's already built for something like a scanning project. It's typically more expensive than you expect, so not many people do it. But if it is essential, again, ask early so that you know if this company can or cannot do something that you may need and it's essential to your project. So those are 5 questions that you can ask when you're vetting a scanning company to see if you want to use their services. Those should be helpful for you to just get the discussion started and see if you need to continue the discussion. I'm Will, this is the Digital Imaging Channel. Thank you for joining, and we will see you next time.